Hi, everybody. So my name is Robert McManus. I am the editor-in-chief and the creator of Lick Magazine. First and foremost, I'd like to start off by saying I am an architect in a editor's position. I started Lick Magazine in like a spur of a moment decision when I had gathered that the creative industry that was going on around me was influenced by wealthy, nepotistic children who had been, turned fame artists and so on. So many people I had met who were trying to get into the industry felt that they weren't able to. They weren't able to dedicate their time. There wasn't a way to sustain themselves. Obviously, this is because not everyone has said means to do so. And this is done in architecture, of course. Nepotism is not something that's only in one field of creativity. It goes across all of these mediums. And so I wanted to create a platform that kind of derails this idea. Here we are. That wanted to derail this idea and that only focuses on the work that is produced, specifically from unknown creatives who cannot dedicate their time fully. It's a way to give a voice to people who don't have the ability to reach out to a gallery and immediately get their work put out there, or have a article published in a well-known publication, spaces that they cannot put themselves into, whether that be work, life, where they're from, who they know. And frankly, I found it insane that this wasn't done before. I think there's this constant discussion that we need to uplift creatives, specifically in societies like, I'd say France. They have a Ministry of Culture. I mean, that's a part of their heritage. And still, it's not easy to put yourselves into these positions. And there's really no way of doing that unless you kind of stumble upon, the right person or, manage to somehow get very lucky and immediately get a very big break. Like, it takes years and years and years of pushing and pulling and jumping forward and backward, just to have anyone recognize your work. And I just felt that these spaces needed to be opened up. I think there is an idea in the creative industry that there is an exclusivity that people crave, and I think that they really profit off that. However, that diminishes thousands and thousands of people's work, just for the sake of the fact that they feed off this exclusivity. And I wanted to put people in those secret parties and back like alleys where they all have their own secret lives, of this like movement of, again, exclusivity and keeping away from smaller people. I felt that everyone deserves a space at that table. So the identity of the magazine kind of came from both, there's a visual understanding of what we were looking for and a historical kind of aspect that we had kind of focused on. We as in my partner, Mary Sullivan, she is a childhood best friend of mine, and we had come to the conclusion together that this needed to be done together, because like the creatives we were trying to push, we also cannot dedicate our lives fully to this. We have to sustain ourselves. We have degrees to get and jobs to work, and we have to fund it ourselves. But we're doing it together. And so we decided to follow around this visual identity of a few magazines, such as like Fruits magazine and like ID magazine, but specifically like the imprint, like very well-known editions from like the 90s, and like The Face, things like that. But things that these magazines that have kind of lost that touch of like rawness as they became much more popular. Of course, we do live in a capitalistic society, and these things do need to make money, and but that's not what we are looking to do. I mean, especially because a lot of our inspirations for this is the Underground Press Syndicate, which people, if you don't know, the Underground Press Syndicate was a collection of magazines and newspapers during the late 60s and early 70s that was spread across the United States. A few of them were started in New York, and the Underground Press Syndicate was actually based in New York City, where I'm from. So it's a bit of a inspiration from home, as it's kind of not unnatural to hear of some guerrilla magazine popping up. And these magazines came together as a coalition across the US to free publish everything they could, like get word across, make it political, share people's thoughts. It was kind of the idea of punk. It was anti-institution. And I mean, some of my favorites were like, I recommend looking them up, like the East Village Other, the LA Free Press, the paper in Fifth Estate. And this is an example of how some of them kind of laid out. Politicalness is always involved when you're starting a magazine, especially for people in creative industries, and especially during a political time that we live in now. I think that's beyond important when going about this. And it's very nerve-wracking because the idea of having to do this, it's the same with, I mean, these incredible publications that came before us, is that you want to reach everyone, but you have to come to a point where you need to know what you really want to give to the world. And that if that means focusing on certain things and not focusing on others, then it's okay. Which is something that something I'm very passionate about, is that it is okay to focus on certain things and not others from time to time. And so following this is where we've kind of decided to start focusing in on sectors of people, specifically like minorities who are under kind of attack, especially in places like my home country, the United States, trans people, people of color, and women, of course. And these are kind of the individuals that we think need to be discussed and things that need to be like pointed out. That focus in itself is somehow political. I mean, people existing is a political, it's always political. And I think that is probably the most important part about starting a magazine of personal opinion, is that you need to make sure that you know your voice, and you're prepared to experience a lot of backlash and experience a lot of kind of raised eyebrows at what you are planning to show the world. So the additions and choices and themes that we run through is kind of always like a back and forth. It's 12 hours of us running through ideas, ripping through paperwork, going through old magazines. I mean, it's constant research, which is important. I mean, to be in an editorial field, like, you should know what you're talking about. And I didn't always know what I was talking about. I mean, it took me 4 years to get to this point, to where I have editions being published and know how to set up a business account, things like that, like small things. Even looking up like what's legally allowed to be published first before you post it on social media, and how these things can get you into trouble if you're not aware. And so editions are very fun. It's also the good thing about having the ability to set up your own magazine, is that you can really do whatever you want, and there's no one above you to tell you that that's unacceptable, which is really freeing. It's like architecture school, where you have a very great amount of freedom at a very limited amount of time. So it's really getting to use that voice as quickly as possible, and as much as possible. And so our first theme itself was focused specifically on passion projects, as this is a passion project of mine. I mean, I've been talking about this for years on end, and it does not take 6 months to start a magazine at all. However, I thought it did, and it did not. And it's taken years, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of very long days and nights, and I worked countlessly to get it done, with my partner, who has been beyond the greatest help I will ever have. And being that this was a passion project, we felt that it was most important to focus the artists as a whole, like what they love to do, to take their work, whether they're photographers, architects, artists, all different mediums, is just to put their love and their passion into something to help us create this first edition, which is it's beyond an honor to be able to do that, to have an artist entrust you with their work, and curate it and publish it. So it was full of love and passion, and I think that was what I was really hoping for when we came out with edition 1. I think it was just chaotic in the best way, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I could not express how much fun it was and how much fun it is, and just grateful for the abilities to do it. Specifically, I think architecture has helped me a lot with kind of coming up with this ability, like having the ability to come up with these themes and curating the magazine, as I think architecture school teaches you to think creatively in a very tactical way, which is something I feel like needs to be focused on more. I think there's a lot of underlying skill and ability that we overlook in architecture schools that can lead you to outside of architecture, like into different career paths, which is not a bad thing. I mean, some of the greatest architects in the world weren't even architects, and some amazing architects didn't even become architects. They went into fashion or editorials or furniture design. I mean, there's spaces in architecture to which you can take this passion and this critical thinking and this like ability to curate and make things like this, which is why I think the theme of passion projects was so beyond fitting for me to produce this. But now that we have our first edition done and dusted, we are currently in the works of producing issue 2, which is girls, girls, girls. And the focus is all about women from all over the world. It's becoming a bit more of that punk rawness that we loved from the underground press syndicate. And now that there's like been a name built, which is always important, you should really always try and build some sort of following or some sort of just awareness of your magazine, especially if you wanted to do something further, like if you want it to grow bigger. And I think now that that's been done and we see the passion in people, I mean, like the amount of, not praise, but the amount of just amazing words and blind, just trying to think of the word. I think just like the blind following that people believe that we can do it, I think was more than enough for us to kind of start to take jumps into some really interesting and very radical spaces. And the thing about Girls, Girls, Girls is it's going to be great. I mean, it's focusing on trans women and women of color and taking back the idea that women cannot and can be bitches. And you know what? Yeah, they can. And I love that women can be bitches, not to excuse my French. But I think that's the best part about women, is that they should be able to be a bitch, because men are assholes sometimes. And I think, the issue is more political and drastic because it relates to, women's bodily autonomy and the fact that women are not really safe a lot. And I think these spaces for creativity represent the political and social status of like what world you're kind of in. And I think right now these are things that should be focused on. I also think with this is that to bring it back to architecture, I think architecture has the ability to do this as well. I think architecture should be recognized by architects for how political it truly is, and how radical it truly can get. And I think doing things like this and, giving voices to people who may be considered a radical alt-left kind of jump is important. I think, I don't think there's enough things in architecture doing that. I think it's too much of a kind of a money game sometimes. And I think as students, as a fellow student, I think we should all be pushing to do something more radical and, creating coalitions and creating community, because that's what this is all about. It's creating community. And without community, you have nothing. The price of community is inconvenience, and so be it. It'll be an inconvenience to me for the rest of my life as long as I can call the people around me a strong, loving community. And I think architecture needs to get back to that. And I think so does free press. Start being more radical. I'm probably sounding crazy right now, but I think you need to be more radical. It's like, this shouldn't be a radical thing that we're doing by quite literally just giving voices to women. Specifically, to get more radical trans women of color. Like, this isn't radical, but it is radical. And it's like architecture can do the exact same thing. We build people's lives, we build people's surroundings. It would be small-minded to say architecture has lost that ability. I think it's still there. I think people just need to force themselves to do it. And that's what I am kind of hoping for, doing this. It's kind of something that I'd like to start working on with architecture students, with architects. I think it needs to be done. And then, so why in print magazines? I get this question a lot is it going to be in print or is it only online? And a lot of people seem very shocked that I say that it's strictly an imprint magazine. Like, it's a physical copy. I will not be ever selling it online for a digital PDF. That is not what I'm here to do. With the rise of social media and the internet culture, I know this is something everyone has heard about 1,000,001 times. Everyone needs to get off their phones and go touch grass. However, with that, there's actually so much art being lost in these minefields of internet brain rot that it's not even registering people's heads, like the creativity that you're surrounded by. And it's not being documented. Yes, it might be in someone's home somewhere. You have that painting from way back when you were trying to become an artist, but it went nowhere because you didn't get enough likes on something. And no one picked it up it wasn't hitting the marks on social media. That doesn't matter. The work deserves to be, it should be documented physically. And I think that's another reason why, I think that's the main reason why I wanted to do in print, is that things need to be documented. Physical magazines, yes, nowadays, since they are becoming so rare, they are becoming kind of this collector's item, and yes, you have to make them beautiful, and the curation is very hard. However, the main focus of it is that we need physical documentation. These books in 50 years, if the day comes and the internet shuts down, it sounds insane, but the amount of creativity we will lose in that very moment is beyond any comprehension I think anyone has. And it's something that scares me, honestly. So I think it's necessary. There'll be historical one day. Even if it doesn't get big, I don't know. I think irregardless, I think this is still a piece of, physical documentation of history in the art world and the creative industry. It's important. And I think not to mention the change of people don't want to stare at the screen anymore. And I know it is something, again, it's talked about over and over and over again, but it's like, it's not healthy. I think the amount of people who are starting to take time from their lives and starting to kind of step back from social media, they are looking for things. People are starting to outsource for, physical media and things to do. I mean, I know so many people who are constantly just trying to buy a physical book and read it in the park. And it seems, I don't even know, it seems insane that that's something you have to push to do, but it's something people have to push themselves to do. And it's like, I think right now is kind of the peak of starting a physical media, like physical imprint, like magazines, any form of media, a zine, whatever. Like, I would encourage people to do it too. Like, if you have an idea, you have something you want to do, make it physical, hand it out, go sit at a flea market, just do it. There are people in this world who understand and respect the time and the effort and the curation it takes to make those. And I think that's really important. Okay. Now my final notes, I have a lot to discuss here. I will talk about the progressive years that I have set goals for. I think my 1 year goal it might be a bit insane, but genuinely, I would strive to sell 500 to 1,000 magazines. I mean, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I do think I want the word to get out strictly for the fact that I just want people to put their work in it and continue to build the community that I'm trying to build. I think it would be an honor to be able to do that, especially to be able to say, like, I helped form like a worldwide community of creatives. That would be a dream. That's a dream of mine. I think I would just, yeah. I also would really like to start strengthening our name for the sake of deconstructing this very toxic and very exclusive creative industry. I mean, at one point, do we get sick and tired of seeing the same 10 people who have literally never made anything in their lives sitting front row at fashion shows, or being the creative directors of fashion brands, or people writing for The New Yorker who they didn't even go to college for writing. Like, that's not their passion. It's not fair. And yes, I know I probably sound like a whining kid being like, it's not fair, I deserve that. Everyone deserves that chance. Everyone deserves equal opportunity. You don't need to, go to Stanford and immediately get put into the LA Times. I think you can be a normal person who went to a community college and ended up being an incredible writer. And you also deserve to be in the LA or New York Times. I think my 5-year goal, by our fifth year anniversary, I would like to have ourselves recognized at least around the globe. I want to break out to Asia. I want to break out to like the East. I find they just have so much cool stuff going on. I mean, their fashion is incredible. They are incredible artists. I mean, it's like they're onto something that I think we all need to be on. Like, they are creating, and we need to create like that. I mean, and further create it, like surpass. Like, there is no goal. The goal is to just continue to do more, get more radical, create more physical work. So I'd like to have that. I would want it by then just to make sure that there's no hierarchy in the creation of, the curation of cool. I don't think there is hierarchy in creative spaces. I don't respect people who believe in a hierarchy in creative spaces. I mean, I don't find you impressive for treating, someone like a piece of garbage for the fact that you have been somewhere for 5 years longer. You were there once, and I think That's another thing I think a lot of people need to recognize. And this is creative industry as a whole. And I do consider architecture a creative industry. It's an art. I mean, there's architecture in the magazine. And I focus so much on architecture being that we're an architecture school. I don't think there should be a hierarchy ever. I mean, everyone starts at zero. And I think that in 5 years' time, I'd like to have that so pushed down people's throats. I'd honestly feel really respected if I received a death threat from like a Vogue, editor-in-chief or something. That's actually probably one of my 5-year goals, is to just get really hated by a lot of people, strictly for the fact that I'm crumbling down this idea that I don't think they're better and they think they're better. I respect people who work hard, but I don't respect people who treat people who are trying to get to where they are while working hard as garbage. And I think in 10 years' time, I expect, I don't want to say, I'd rather speak it into existence. I expect the magazine to be more than just a magazine. It should be a conglomerate of things. I think it should be like a conglomerate for like a way to exist. Like, not to call myself some self-help guru who's going to change the world, but I genuinely do believe, like, I think everyone needs a reality check. Like, I mean, everyone does one time or another. And I think people need to realize this 5-year goal that I have should be implemented in 10 years completely. I mean, I crave for that to happen. I also just want people to be able to experience places and things properly. Like, one of the biggest things I'd really hope for the magazine is that, along with creating these creative communities, I'd like to kind of properly open up the world to people. I mean, there's so many people, especially from, even New York City. Like, I grew up with people who have never lived outside of the city. Their vacations range from a 2-hour flight to a 4-hour drive. And I think that maybe it's specifically the United States for me because I'm from there, but I sense and I see there's so much lack of understanding of the world, and there's not enough of information given to people who are, even if they're not looking for it, I think you should have the option to be able to see it whenever you can. So I'd really like to kind of expand that. I would like for to become some sort of big thing and a way of teaching people. I mean, one can dream. And I don't know. I think my personal reflection on everything is that, again, I think architects should be doing more of this. We had a lecturer recently, Niccolo Caccio, and he had said that, when did architects stop becoming these artists, creatives? I mean, he was talking about an iPhone and how computer engineers are designing iPhones, but architects should be designing iPhones. And I couldn't tell if I was maybe going a little bit nuts or if I was like, this man is absolutely correct, which he is correct. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, he's 100% correct. Architects should be doing more. We have limited ourselves, or maybe it's not just us, maybe it's the world itself, or like laws restricting architects and so on. We've just become so confined to very minute spaces sometimes, I think. And I think that we can and should do more. And I would love to just see that. I mean, I would love to start something with it. I mean, that's another thing, the magazine, architecture is a part of art. If you are an artist, if you are a writer, if you are an architect, if you are anything of the sorts, and you are under the creative medium, submit to the magazine. Please, especially architecture. If you are an architect and you have a passion for this and you believe that what you've made is art, because I do believe architecture is art, in its own form, submit. I mean, if that's all I could ask for, is just make something more of architecture. I hope that it can be done, and I hope that I can continue to kind of make that heard. And I'm lucky to be able to even do that now. So Thank you.